So what I found is that I was immersed in a particular, I guess, point of view that I got from my teacher. And I got to a point in my teaching where I started going out and doing workshops in different parts of the country. Mm-hmm. And at different studios I would go to, there would be different traditions or different, another way of saying actually traditions in our modern context is brands, right?
Yep. Yeah.
People would be immersed in a particular method of teacher training. And there would be contradictory claims mm-hmm. about what caused injury, yep. about how to be safe, mm-hmm. about what would be healing for certain
causes pain
conditions, what causes pain, mm-hmm. All of these sorts of things. And this was really eye-opening for me. Mm-hmm. Should the shoulder be this way or that way? Should you hold your neck like this or like that? Should your low back be rounding into the floor or arching off the floor when you're doing some kind of core work exercise? All of these different things were contradictory, and in each area I went to, they were very strongly held as, no, this is correct, and what you just said is wrong. Yeah. And I just found that so fascinating, and that was actually what got me into getting much more interested in anatomy and biomechanics. Perhaps not to the extent academically as you've gotten, and so that's why I'm so delighted to talk to you. But it made me stop and think and say, okay, it seems like in this camp, there's a whole bunch of people who maybe do it this way, mm-hmm. and it helps them. Mm-hmm. In this camp, there's a whole bunch of people who do it the opposite way, and it helps them. Mm-hmm. And then vice versa. Mm-hmm. Some of the people over here who are doing it that way get hurt. Mm-hmm. And some over here who are doing it the right way, according to that school of thought, get hurt. And then there's a third set of people who, either way they do it, they're fine. So that made me start thinking, okay, what are the sort of defining factors, anatomically or genetically, structurally, what might be happening in these different people's bodies that means that these different approaches are either deleterious or helpful to them or harmless, mm-hmm. Yeah, so that's my sort of long-winded way of inviting anything you might have to say in that regard.
Yeah, this is a really great topic to discuss because it reminds me of a tweet I just saw on Twitter. Yeah. It was really brilliant, but it basically said something to the effect of beginners, like new teachers, in that context, spend their time debating what the right way is or the wrong way is. Like they are trying to figure out how to do it. Like, this is what your foot should do in Warrior One. This is how it is. This is how your hips should be. And then the more like the longer you've been around and the more you understand, you no longer discuss what's right and wrong. You discuss options. Uh-huh. And that's really, for me, what came out of this whole biomechanical thing. And it's really crazy because it really threw me right up against yoga and had me look at all of these postures and realize that none of it matters. Why it works is because you're moving, and hopefully in a novel way. And you should round your back, and you should arch your back. Uh-huh. You should be able to do both. And if you do one too much and not the other, yep. You're limiting your potential to move and express movement, through, as a human. Yep. And so suddenly it's like, I understand why beginners don't want to have this conversation, because you basically are telling them it doesn't matter. Yeah. And that's not helpful, and that it doesn't give them any tools. And it doesn't support their education. Mm-hmm. And so it's like when, there's plenty of research like manual therapy, that any manual therapy works for back pain. Not one isn't better than the other. Some of them work for some of the people, some of the time, So it's like the same thing. Like, we have all these wonderful results in yoga, and the results are because they're doing something. Yeah. Anything. And they're doing it in a new way, and there's a novel experience. And when we get hung up on this is how you should do it, the minute you think you figured out how to do downward dog, it's time to look at it from a totally new lens, because it's time to do it differently. Because you've already mastered that. So you should constantly be evolving. And maybe this person should be doing it this way for whatever reason. There's just no it's just so completely simple that it's so complicated when you're new, if that makes sense.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I think that's doubly true for new teachers.
Yes.
Right? In our teacher trainings, we get a lot of really frustrated and dismayed looks when we start saying, well, there are options. And for this, maybe this person that works better, maybe for this person that would work better, and maybe over time it'll change, depending on what else they're doing with their body, or what their genetic kind of tendencies are, or where else they may have certain kinds of imbalances. And that's a very hard thing to accept when you're trying to learn, either as a potential teacher or as a student, how to do it the right way.
Well, it kind of goes back to theory versus practical application,
exactly.
Right? So you need, I'm going to just use a toolbox analogy because I think everybody understands that, but you need a toolbox of practical applications so that you can, without that, all the theory in the world means nothing. Does that make sense?
Sure.
But if all you have is the practical applications, then you're going to be constantly looking for the right way or the one way, and you won't be able to embrace the theory. And if you understand the theory, then it doesn't matter which practical application you pull out of your toolbox. And it's like then you can adapt and manipulate that tool and alter it based on what your understanding of the theory is.
Absolutely.
But when you're new, theory is too much. It's like, you just want the practical application so that you can get out and do something. And then you start to theorize, and then that's when it gets complicated. But then it gets so simple because you really understand the whole big picture that it's like, oh, well, I can actually just change it a little bit because I understand why I'm doing it. And I don't have to worry that it follows the lineage or that it was correct or incorrect or whatever, as long as I have a grasp of what it's doing.
Yeah.